Everybody, this is a very difficult story to cover. It is Scarlett Johnson, Moms for Liberty, Wisconsin. Just a breathtaking story. Scarlett, welcome to the program. Tell us about this story and the elements related to it, please.
Hi, thanks for having me. Yeah, this story is actually insane. It's a story of Westosha, Wisconsin, which is in Kenosha County. And in December, this broke, and I was able to work with the local community and parents. It's just insane. A biological male, 16 years old, obvious male, over 200 pounds, who identified as trans, was allowed to change in the girls' locker room. Freshman girls, so these are 13 and 14-year-old girls, were terrified. This boy has alleged to strip nude, to leer at the girls while they were changing, and even alleged that he rubbed lotion on his genitalia to, quote, prevent chafing. I had to do a lot of research before I even started to post this on X and start to sound all the alarms, because it was hard to believe. It was hard to believe that this was happening in Wisconsin, but it absolutely was. Putting on a skirt and some makeup, putting on a woman face does not make a boy a man. And this insane transgender ideology has just warped the mind of even the school staff. These girls, when they complained, the gym teacher told them to stop being dramatic and that it would be discriminatory to not allow the boy who was harassing and intimidating the girls to change. And so the girls started to try to use the gender neutral space, the family locker rooms. And when they did, they were late for class and they got unexcused absences and failing grades. They kicked the girls out of the gender neutral space, a space that the boys should have gone to. Instead, the girls were lining up trying to use it to escape from this boy. It's just insane. And then it gets even worse because this boy is alleged to have yelled at the girls, pushed the girls, even thrown one of their Chromebooks against the wall when they demanded that he get out of the space that they told him they were uncomfortable changing in front of him. And the school took the side of this boy instead of protecting the girls. And, it's just, they were told they were not being inclusive and that it would be discriminatory. So their rights, their safety, their privacy came a distant second to this biological boy who identified as trans. And this defies all common sense. And to prioritize the feelings of this boy over all of the girls. And I just sometimes think my head is going to explode. But when parents wrote emails and then they complained, they were gaslighted. They were told, oh, yeah, we're going to take care of this. And then they didn't. And there was a huge uproar, and Moms for Liberty members fought valiantly, going to school board meetings, demanding that this policy be changed. And instead, the school board voted 5-2 to continue to implement the old Biden version of Title IX in open defiance of President Trump. And knowing that these executive orders were going to come, knowing that there was going to be a change in the definition back to, there are two sexes, male and female, they still went forward and they continue to this day to advocate for policies that violate the executive order.
It's terrible. Thank you. I want to just summarize so the audience really internalize that. So here you have a 200-pound boy. For the record, that's heavier than me. Okay, I weigh like 192 to 195, and I'm 6'5". I'm a pretty big person. 200-pound boy in high school. And so then he then gets fully naked. There's no surgery or anything. So full genitalia, starts rubbing his genitals. So you could make the argument that he's potentially masturbating in front of these girls. We don't know that for sure, but awfully close. And leering at them. Then these minor girls feel violated because there's this pervert touching himself in front of these minor girls. So they decide to disengage. No adult stands up for these girls as this pervert is touching his genitals in front of these girls. They go into the gender-neutral bathroom. And then the gym teachers were telling the girls that they were being dramatic and that they get punished while the pervert ends up becoming the hero of the story. Now, let me tell you one just element of this, and you don't have to comment on this. It was a mistake ever building these gender-neutral bathrooms. You get this because you build these gender-neutral bathrooms. Once you start to accommodate delusion and insanity, then you get this problem. So the thought process, well, if we just build gender-neutral bathrooms, this won't matter because obviously this kid is dealing with an issue. We tried to appease it. And by the way, we saw this in Deerfield High School, the exact same thing, about 30 minutes down the street from you, where they have gender-neutral bathrooms. The gender-neutral bathrooms sounded reasonable on the surface and sounded with good intentions. Hey, there's a kid that's struggling. Let's try to accommodate them. But then the kid says, no, I'm actually a woman. Don't put me in some sort of segregated space. And so this becomes, I just want to reemphasize, if you think that you're going to solve it by building another space, you're wrong. And these adults are pushing political agendas. And so I know this might sound like a very blunt question, but for some of these minor girls that are 15 or 16, that might have been their first exposure to male genitalia. So for the rest of their life, they might have now have a scarring image of some pervert in the locker room that they are forced to experience. So their first exposure to male genitalia of some 200-pound guy rubbing himself. That is, I mean, that's psychotic.
It is. It is. It's dangerous. It's psychotic. I would say it's assault. It's sexual harassment. And a Title IX complaint should have been filed by the school for these girls who were abused. And I completely agree with your assessment of these gender neutral spaces, because you know what they've become? Places for biological girls, actual girls, to hide from the boys. And there are not enough of them. And it's crazy. They don't want to go in the gender neutral space because in their delusion, they want to be affirmed as females. And you were talking about the Deerfield case, and that's exactly what had happened in the middle school, where the parents who suffer from, also some kind of delusion sometimes, they want their kid in the girls' bathroom. They want their kid in the girls' bathroom. This also in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, again, 13 and 14-year-old girls were traumatized, absolutely traumatized when an 18-year-old male exposed himself, showered next to them.
Okay, I think we lost Scarlett for a second. So I just, while Scarlett was talking, I asked this question. Very simple. I asked the question, I said, if a Wisconsin man were to walk into a locker room, got naked, and started rubbing himself, what law would he be breaking? What turns out, defined under Wisconsin statute 944.20, this law prohibits public and indecent exposure of one's genitals in a public area, in a pubic area. Such conduct is considered improper or vulgar and is subject to legal penalties. Disorderly conduct under Wisconsin statute 947.01, engaged in behavior that tends to cause or provoke a disturbance. So in the Wisconsin law, it's illegal what this young man is doing. If this young man were just to walk into a Lifetime Fitness or to walk into a Gold's Gym and to start getting naked and started touching himself, he would potentially be arrested. So I do have to just ask, and I know this is why are parents putting up with this? Forget the letters, this is, I'll be honest, these parents aren't fighting hard enough. Tell me what they're doing. Why are they still sending kids to this school? Why are they putting up with this, actually?
Well, there are some parents that have pulled their daughters out of the school, and there are two families that are fighting back, and they have legal counsel, and they are working with the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, who has just filed a Title IX complaint against the Westosha Central High School, and they are fighting back legally. Many parents have pulled their daughters out. There are several emails going back and forth, parents going to the school, text messages that you can see that the girls have with their parents where they're saying, I don't want to go in the locker room. I'm afraid to go in the locker room. I do have to agree with you, Charlie. If this was my daughter, there would be hell to pay. There would be hell to pay. I would not rest. And I am treating this case like it is my daughter's and trying to fight back as hard as I can with Moms for Liberty. We are trying to fight for these girls. Where are the adults? Where are the adults?
But also,
Schools.
no, but I'll be. So this is what Wauwatosa, or is it what
Westosha.
where? Yeah, Westosha. I get all my beautiful Native American Wisconsin cities mixed up. So I know this sounds kind of silly. Why doesn't the sheriff just go and arrest this young man?
That's a really good question, especially considering he's alleged to have threatened to shoot up the school.
Oh, that's another element. Yeah, we forgot about that. This young man literally said, "I'm going to go shoot up the entire school." So we all have to accommodate. These young girls have to now be exposed by force to male genitalia. They get punished if they don't. So they go to the other locker room, they get an F. He is threatening to shoot up the entire school. And so you must now go through. If you are a teenage girl in Wisconsin, you must go through the humiliation ritual of looking at naked men touch themselves that are 200 pounds. And if you do not do that while he's leering and taunting them, and if you don't do that, you're being dramatic. At the same time, let me just say this, and I'll keep you for another segment. At the same time, if a young man probably wore a Trump hat at that school and you said that you were offended, that kid would probably have to leave school and all these girls would be given a day off of school. But no. The thing that really is not offensive is if some random dude starts to commit crimes in front of minors. Perfectly fine. That's progress. That is the left. I hope you guys understand that if we do not defeat the Democrat Party and extinguish them as a permanent minority force, they're coming for your kids. Big time. What do we have? ReliefFactor.com. When you hear the term living better, what do you think about? More money, a bigger house, maybe a yacht? What about how you feel physically, how you wake up each day, how you sleep, what activities you can and cannot do? ReliefFactor.com. Wherever you're hurting in 3 weeks or even days, Relief Factor can give you a chance to rediscover the true meaning of living better again. Visit ReliefFactor.com or call 1-800-4RELIEF. That is 1-800-4RELIEF. Wherever you're hurting in 3 weeks or even days, Relief Factor can give you a chance to rediscover the true meaning of living better again. So go to ReliefFactor.com. That is ReliefFactor.com. There is a special election in Wisconsin. It's going to be really tough for Republicans and conservatives. Most Republicans don't care that much about this election tomorrow, but I hope you will vote for Brad Schimmel. We'll be right back. Sure. And then I want you to have a good faith conversation. Because we are not going to bring this country together, of which is actually our goal here as part of the MAGA movement, which is why we have an open mic. If you go around accusing people as if we're following Charlie Manson.
You just did the same thing to me.
Well, in all fairness, I said, if this is the standard of our dialogue right now, the Democrat Party is far more of a cult than the Republican Party. That is not a contention that I throw around lightly, but it is, you satisfy the requirements way more than the MAGA movement does.
You haven't asked me enough questions to know that.
Well, that has nothing to do with what I've said.
Yes, it does.
I mean,
you haven't asked me if I would blindly follow some leader of the Democratic Party, which is no, I would only follow if I do the in-depth research of an unbiased source to get my information, and then I base my opinion off of that.
Fair enough. Can you give me an example of an unbiased source?
I mean, like Mayo Clinic or just like any EDU source of college information.
I'll end this. If that's your idea of a biased source.
Off the top of my head.
I would encourage you to dig deeper and be more of a free thinker.
And I will, and I am a free thinker. And I grew up in a conservative household. And once I left my parents and their beliefs, and I moved to college in a very conservative state, I actually become more progressive.
Okay, and so how is your relationship with your parents?
I mean, it's fine. We don't agree on most things, but...
Wait, so they didn't kick you out for having a different opinion? They're terrible cult members. Wait, they still love you for who you are? And do they pay your tuition?
Nope.
Okay,
I pay my own tuition.
Letting everyone know socialism sucks. The Charlie Kirk Show.
Okay, YREFI.com, YREFY.com. Private student loan debt in America totals over $300 billion. Just call 888-YREFI-34 and log on to YREFI.com. That is YREFY.com. May not be available in all 50 states. YREFI offers a 3-minute rate check without any credit impact. Let's face it, if you have distressed or defaulted private student loans, nobody's coming to bail you out, and bankruptcy is not an option. But you could take charge of your situation by contacting YRefi. YRefi refinances distressed and defaulted private student loans, which are different from federal loans. Go to YRefi.com. YRefi can save you thousands of dollars by refinancing your private student loan debt. So when the payment on your distressed or defaulted private student loans is so big that you can't ever get ahead in your finances, YRefi is surely your best option. So go to YRefi.com. That is YREFY.com. That is YRefi.com. YRefi.com. So check it out right now. YRefi.com. It might not be available in all 50 states. Private student loan debt totals over $300 billion. You could take control of your student loan debt. YRefi does not care what your credit score is. So take a look at it right now, YRefi.com. Be right back, everybody. Okay, everybody, the Herzog Foundation, it's a great segue to the conversation we're talking here. Are you rethinking your kid's educational path, wondering if their current school truly supports your family's values? You're not alone, and the Herzog Foundation is here to help. Go to readlion.com to access must-read articles, and don't forget to sign up for the Lion's daily and weekly newsletters. That's readlion.com. Stay informed, stay equipped, and shape your child's future. Go to that is readlion.com. Everything is brought to you by the Herzog Foundation and the Lion. So go to readlion.com, readlion.com. Readlion.com to access must-read articles. So stay informed, stay equipped, and shape your child's future. Email us freedom@charliekirk.com and subscribe to our podcast. So Scarlett, tell us about what Moms for Liberty is doing to fight this in this great state of Wisconsin.
We are doing so much. I'm so proud to be a part of this organization, and we often work with Turning Point in Wisconsin, so we really appreciate all the efforts that they're doing as well. The coalitions that are being built with the state and local GOP, it's amazing, and I've been witnessing this firsthand going all over the state of Wisconsin. But we have a Get Out the Vote ad that's been seen over 1 million times. We have invested in mom and dad ambassadors that travel the state, that talk about stories like this one in Westosha and so many more. We talk about woke curriculum. A lot of people don't believe it's happening, and they don't believe it's happening in their school. And we prove to them that it is happening. We're targeting over 300,000 low propensity voters across the state. There are 400 school board races. Those are very important. And so we are funding with our PAC. We are funding some select races. We are sending out texts. We have 22 chapters, and each chapter and members are working to get sensible, common sense conservative school board members elected. Where we have conservative school boards, this insanity just doesn't happen, and they return back to the basics and common sense. So everything is local. The more that you can do locally, the better. And we are supporting Brittany Kinzer in the state superintendent race, which is very, very important. And of course, we're supporting Brad Schimmel and the state Supreme Court race.
So again, just tell me really quick, where does this case stand with the young man who is basically the young ladies that are forced to watch pornographic humiliation rituals? Where does that stand now?
Right now, the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty has filed a Title IX complaint with the Trump administration, and there is a lawsuit filed with two families. And I really think that obviously now with Trump in office, that there's going to be some effort, hopefully, to defund this county, this school district. But just because we have Trump in office, which is terrific, but that's not enough. The woke never stop. So team sanity, we must work to win these elections on April 1st. Now, you can't early vote today, but tomorrow you can go vote and you can take 10 people with you because it matters. If we can get, right now, there are conservative Moms for Liberty and George candidates in Westosha running. And if they win, they could change this at the local level too. So that's a huge option. And what's happening with judges, what we're seeing nationally, that's happening in Wisconsin as well. We need common sense judges that aren't going to legislate from the bench. And I'm sure, Charlie, I know you've talked about this, but there is a plan by the Democratic Party that if they win, if Susan Crawford wins, they are immediately going to gerrymander Wisconsin congressional districts so that 2 seats would be targeted and likely lost, and that could disrupt right now the Republican majority in the House. And you know what they're going to do if they get that majority? You know what they're going to do right away. They're going to go back to impeaching Trump. They're going to go after Doge. They're going to stop Trump any way that they can. And that's why this is so important, because all of the change that Trump is doing, which is tremendous, and I'm happy every day about it, but it is threatened by this simple race in Wisconsin, the state Supreme Court race. So if you voted for Trump in November, you need to vote for Brad Schimmel on April 1st, tomorrow.
Very good. Scarlett, God bless you, and keep fighting hard on the ground. And I hope that enough Republicans care about their state to show up for Brad Schimmel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Email us freedom@charliekirk.com. A reminder, tomorrow I will be at Oklahoma State University in Stillwater, Oklahoma.